As I mentioned earlier, Amelia was a passenger on the 1928 flight, and it always grated on her that she didn't take the controls. And so in 1932, she decides to try to fly across the Atlantic again, but this time by herself. And she acquires a new plane, a Lockheed Vega aircraft that if you go to the National Air and Space Museum today, on the second floor, you'll see that wonderful plane. And she decides on the 5th anniversary of Lindbergh's famous solo flight across the Atlantic to attempt this herself. She takes off from Newfoundland, and her goal is to get to Paris, France, in the sense to replicate Lindbergh's flight. Immediately upon takeoff, she hits bad weather, and towards the end of the flight, she is going to have a shortage of fuel and is going to be very concerned about whether she's going to have to ditch the plane in the Atlantic. But fortunately, she comes out of the clouds and spots Ireland. And the photograph that I'm standing next to here shows Amelia with the farmer in whose field she landed in 1932. He was the only person to witness her landing, and there's a funny conversation that happened between the two. She jumped out of her plane. He came up to greet her, and he was quite shocked. Who is this person? What is this plane? Where did you come from? And he asks her this very question, and she says, "I'm Amelia Earhart from America." Flying in the 1930s was very different than flying today. You don't have pressurized compartments. You don't have beverage service or a place to go to the bathroom. It was a grueling experience. And this case gives us some, I think, indication of the arduous nature of this work. We see on the right here her pilot's license, a really romantic picture for sure that sort of suggests her connection to the sort of aviation fraternity. But these two artifacts here are from the famous 1932 flight. Her leather cap that she wore, remember, it was quite cold in the compartment. And also this little green vial that she carried with her. These are smelling salts. Remember, this is a flight that lasted 15 hours. And flying by herself, she did everything possible to try to sort of stay attentive, to stay awake. And this little vial she brought with her. Otherwise, the plane was largely filled with fuel. She said that she brought a can of hot soup. She brought a toothpaste. She brought $20, but she didn't even bring a change of clothes. And when she ultimately lands in Ireland and moves on to England and to other capitals in Europe, she's going to have to first borrow clothes and then acquire a new set of clothes in order to make her public appearances.